In the peaceful village of Agbale, nestled between gentle hills and wide rivers, lived a soft-spoken woman named Nmaja. She was known not only for her calm spirit, but for the magic in her fingers. Hands that could weave cloth so beautiful, it made even the elders sigh. Nmaja was married to Chuma, a humble man who carved wooden stools and farm tools. Together they were the picture of love. Every morning, while birds sang and the sky stretched open with promise, Nmaja would sit beneath the old iroko tree weaving bright fabrics, and Chuma would be nearby, shaping wood with careful strokes. Their laughter floated through the air like music. Their dream was simple, a strong house filled with children's laughter and meals shared at sunset. The people of Agbale often smiled when they saw them. "They are the joy of this village," one elder often said. Nmaja's cloths were special. She combined bold reds with soft golds, deep blues with sunrise yellows, creating patterns that danced. Though she didn't have riches, her art brought beauty and pride to those who wore it. Even travelers began to hear of the weaver of Agbale. Slowly, her fame began to travel past the dusty paths of the village. Chuma was proud. He would tell anyone who would listen, "No hands like my wife's, not in this land or the next." Nmaja would laugh, hiding her smile behind her wrapper. Then, one afternoon, a tall woman dressed in rich ankara entered the village. Her name was Madame Zalika, a trader known for discovering treasures in hidden places and selling them in the big cities beyond the hills. When her eyes landed on Nmaja's, "Fabrics," she gasped. "These are not just cloth," she whispered, "they are stories." She approached Nmaja with a grand offer. She would buy as much as Nmaja could make and carry them to places where kings and queens walked. Nmaja's heart pounded. This was beyond anything she'd dreamed. That evening, she shared the news with Chuma. He nodded, pride glowing in his eyes. "This is your path, Nmaja. The ancestors are smiling. Go forward, my wife." Still, Nmaja hesitated. She loved her quiet life, her peaceful mornings with Chuma. The idea of working for someone else, sending her fabrics far from home, even traveling sometimes, it felt strange. But Chuma held her hand gently. "Don't fear change," he said. "You were born for something big." With his blessing, Nmaja agreed. She would work harder than ever, and she promised herself that no matter how far her name went, her heart would remain in Agbale. From that day, her loom never rested. Night and day she wove colors like fire and rain, her fingers flying, her mind full of patterns. Madame Zalika came often, taking bundles of cloth and praising her work. Word spread like Harmattan wind. Buyers came from towns with names Nmaja had never heard. Her small hut became a workshop. Her name passed from mouth to mouth, whispered in markets and sung in homes. The coins she earned helped her and Chuma fix their leaking roof. They bought a bigger table, stronger carving tools, and even a new goat. Nmaja smiled often. "It's working," she would say. "We are rising." But as her fame grew, her time at home shrank. Sometimes she had to travel with Madame Zalika to other villages. At first, Chuma didn't mind. He missed her, yes, but he told himself it was just the beginning. But slowly, a new feeling crept in, one he didn't understand. People in the village began to whisper. "Did you hear? Nmaja's work is now in the chief's palace. They say a trader from across the sea wants her cloths." Everyone praised her, but fewer people noticed Chuma. He was still carving, still kind, still quiet, but the smiles he once wore began to fade. One evening, Nmaja returned from a long trip. She entered their home, her arms full of fabric, her voice full of joy. "My love, I sold everything. They asked for more next week." Chuma looked up from his workbench, gave a half smile, and returned to sanding his wood. "That's good," he said simply. Nmaja's heart paused. Where was the warm smile, the dance in his eyes? She sat beside him, touching his arm. "Chuma, are you all right?" "I'm fine," he answered, still not looking at her. She didn't believe him, but said nothing. Her joy cooled like yam left too long in the pot. As the days passed, things grew quieter between them. Nmaja kept working, kept smiling in public, but at night she stared at the ceiling, wondering. Meanwhile, the whispers in the market grew louder. "Have you noticed Chuma?" said one woman to another. "He doesn't laugh anymore." I heard, he feels forgotten, another replied. Men don't like it when their wives rise too high. Nmaja heard these whispers too. They wrapped around her heart like vines. She loved her husband. She didn't want success to become a wall between them. But the change in Chuma deepened. He no longer asked about her travels. He didn't admire her cloths like before. When she placed food before him, he nodded silently. When she told stories of markets and praises, he only muttered, "That's good." The village no longer saw them walk together, no longer heard their shared laughter at dawn. The love that once bloomed like hibiscus in the sun now seemed hidden beneath the soil, and still, Nmaja hoped. She believed that the man who once held her hand with pride, who once said she was born for greatness, he was still in there somewhere. But would he find his way back to her, or had the shadow of jealousy already swallowed their light? The days in Agbale grew quieter, and the air between Nmaja and Chuma became heavy like unspoken rain. Nmaja missed the old days, the days filled with laughter under the baobab tree, when dreams were whispered over steaming bowls of yam porridge. One night, she found the courage to speak. "Chuma," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Missus, why don't we talk like before?" Chuma didn't lift his eyes. He kept carving the edge of a stool, the scraping sound louder than her words. "You're too busy with your new world," he muttered. "It feels like you don't need me anymore." Those words pierced her heart like a thorn. She blinked fast, fighting tears. "Everything I do is for us, my husband. I want us to have a better life." But Chuma only shook his head. "You don't see it, Nmaja. Your success makes me feel small. Like I no longer matter." She didn't know how to respond. She loved him, with every fiber of her being, yet it felt like the very thing she worked for was building a wall between them. That night, she lay awake, staring at the thatched ceiling, wondering where their dreams had wandered off to. She longed to tell him that she still loved him the same, maybe even more. But her words seemed to float into silence. "I wish we could go back," she whispered into the dark. But Chuma's heart was no longer in the same place. Each day that passed seemed to steal more of his warmth. In the village square, people no longer asked about his carvings. Instead, they stopped him only to ask, "How is Nmaja's business?" Their faces lit up when they spoke of her, but no one mentioned his name anymore. That stung, and so bitterness found space in his chest. He began spending his evenings with men at the palm wine hut. They laughed too loudly and spoke with poison in their tongues. "Your wife shines too brightly now, Chuma," one said. "Be careful, she might forget where she came from." Another whispered, "Women with too much success stop needing their men." Chuma, once proud, now sat in silence, nursing cups of bitterness and belief. Slowly, his love turned to coldness. Back home, Nmaja felt the frost. When she shared stories of her trips or new cloth designs, Chuma barely nodded. He didn't touch her fabrics anymore, didn't ask what colors she was weaving. So she started staying longer at her workshop. It was easier than returning to a home that no longer felt like home. The women of Agbale began to notice. "What has happened to Nmaja and Chuma?" they whispered near the market well. "They used to be like twin birds flying in the same sky." Rumors began to swirl like dust. In dry season, "I saw Chuma with a strange woman at the wine shop," one said, leaning in close. "Maybe he's no longer happy with Nmaja." Nmaja heard the whispers, and though her heart trembled, she refused to believe them. "He's just lost," she told herself. "He would never betray me." But inside, a small fear bloomed. One quiet morning, Nmaja went to see Madame Zalika, the trader who had first believed in her. Her feet dragged as she walked, and her hands twisted the edge of her wrapper. When she arrived, tears filled her eyes. "Madame Zalika," she said, "my husband is slipping away from me. He says my success makes him feel like less of a man." Madame Zalika placed her hand gently on Nmaja's shoulder. "My child," she said, "you have worked hard. You deserve every blessing. But marriage is like a calabash. It must be handled with care, or it will crack. Water it with love, even when the soil feels dry. Remind him that your heart still beats beside his." Nmaja nodded slowly. She knew the elder woman spoke true. Not long after, the village elders decided to host a celebration. They wanted to honor Nmaja for making Agbale known far and wide through her artistry. She was to receive an award in front of the entire village. The drums would sound. The dancers would spin. The chief himself would speak her name with pride. Though her heart should have been full, Nmaja felt heavy. She wanted Chuma to be there. She wanted his hand in hers when they called her name. One evening she approached him in the courtyard where he sat sharpening his tools. "Please, my love," she said, "come with me. I want to receive this honor with you beside me." But Chuma didn't even look up. "There's nothing for me to celebrate," he said coldly. Her chest tightened. She turned away, hiding her tears. On the day of the celebration, the village was alive with sound. Flutes sang. Children danced. Elders clapped their hands. Nmaja stood at the center, wrapped in her finest cloth, her head high but her heart aching. As the chief raised the carved wooden award and said, "Nmaja, you have brought honor to Agbale," the crowd erupted in joy. But her eyes searched. Chuma was not there. The applause echoed like thunder, but it only made the emptiness louder. She smiled for the people, but inside, her tears fell like rain. Far from the celebration, Chuma sat by the river, his bare feet in the sand, staring into the rippling water. The trees rustled gently, but he heard nothing, only his thoughts. She stands there smiling. "And I feel like a ghost," he muttered. He thought of the villagers praising her, of her face glowing under the sun, of how he had once made her laugh, once been her world. He picked up a stone and flung it into the water. It sank, but the heaviness inside him remained. That night Nmaja returned home carrying the award like a fragile gourd. Her arms were full, but her soul was empty. She stepped into the house and wondered, was the price of her success the silence of the one she loved? Nmaja sat on the edge of her bed, her hands folded tightly. Her heart felt too heavy to carry alone anymore. That night, as the crickets sang outside and the moon poured soft light into the room, she turned to Chuma. "Please, can we talk?" Chuma glanced up, his eyes full of fire. "Talk? About what?" he snapped. "Your glory? Your fame? How you've left me behind?" Namaya's breath caught. "Chuma," she said gently, "I haven't left you. You're still my husband. Everything I've done, it's all been for us." But he turned away, his jaw tight. "You do it for yourself, Nmaja. You shine so bright now. I feel like a shadow beside you." Tears spilled down Namaja's cheeks. "You matter. To me, you always have. I never wanted success to make you feel small. I only wanted to rise with you." For a brief second, Chuma's face softened, but his pride quickly returned. "It's too late," he said coldly. "You have everything. You don't need me anymore." Those words pierced Nmaya's soul. She sat in silence, staring at the man she loved, feeling a storm rising between them. Soon the tension in their home began to spill into the village. Some villagers whispered, "Let her be. She earned her place with hard work." But others murmured behind cupped hands, "A woman shouldn't outshine her husband. It's shameful." The elders shook their heads. The young girls, however, admired her. "She shows us what's possible," they said. "She's a light for women." But Nmaja felt the weight of it all. Every whisper, every stare, every judgment that twisted in the wind like dry leaves. Then, one evening, an elder named Bandel came to her doorstep. His white beard brushed his chest, and his staff tapped the earth with wisdom in each step. "I have heard your heart is troubled, daughter," he said, settling near her. Nmaja nodded, wiping her eyes. "He's drifting away from me. I don't know how to reach him." Bandel tilted his head. "A man's pride," he said slowly, "is like a goat in the rain. It shivers and hides, but it still needs shelter." "What can I do?" she asked. "Keep showing him the warmth of your heart. Even the hardest yam softens in fire." Nmaja took those words deep into her soul. From then on, she decided not to give up. She cooked Chuma's favorite dishes. She swept their home till it shone. She even paused her weaving some days just to sit with him. Though he said little in return, still she waited. Sometimes when she wasn't looking, Chuma would glance at her with quiet eyes, the kind of eyes that remembered dancing under moonlight, building dreams with bare hands, but his heart stayed guarded. One hot afternoon, a man appeared at their compound, a broad-shouldered friend from long ago. His name was Odenike, and he had once carved wood alongside Chuma before moving to a faraway village. "Ah, my old friend," he cried, embracing Chuma. "I heard your wife has become famous. I came to celebrate with you." Chuma forced a small smile. "It doesn't feel like a celebration," he muttered. Odenike blinked. "What do you mean?" Chuma sighed. "Everyone sees her, but no one sees me." Odenike chuckled softly. "But you're part of her story. Without your support, would she have risen? My friend, her victory is also yours." Chuma said nothing. His eyes dropped to the ground. That evening, Odenike pulled Chuma aside again. "I've known you a long time," he said, "and I can see your spirit is tired. But your worth doesn't disappear just because your wife shines. You still matter, Chuma. She needs you to stand beside her, not in her shadow, but as her strength." Chuma didn't respond, but the words settled somewhere deep. After Odenike left, Nemaya continued to love without asking for anything in return. She still wove cloth for Madame Zalika, but she also spent more time at home. One evening, she prepared hot amala and a thick, rich pot of ogbono soup just the way Chuma liked it. She placed the tray before him with a small smile. "I made this for you, my husband." Chuma looked at the food. He didn't say much, but he ate slowly, quietly, with something soft growing behind his eyes. Nmaja felt a small ache. He didn't speak, but he hadn't pushed her away either. She would not give up. That night, Chuma stepped outside and walked through the cool breeze of Agbale. The moon followed him. In the distance, he heard drumming. The village was celebrating a new yam harvest. He paused under a tall palm tree, watching the joy from afar. "I remember when we danced like that," he whispered. "Before all of this." He sank to the earth beneath the tree and rested his head against the trunk. Odenike's words returned to him. Maybe he had been too hard. Back home, Nmaja sat by the fire alone. The warmth didn't reach her heart. Her success had brought her honor, but not peace. The one person she wanted to share it with felt like a stranger now. She stared into the flames, remembering their early days, how Chuma had once carved her name into wood and said, "We will build our future together." And now she could only hope he'd return to her. Maya sat alone by the fire, her eyes heavy with unshed tears. She missed the way Chuma used to hold her hand and whisper dreams beneath the stars. She would have given up every piece of her success, every coin she had earned, just to feel his love again. She wiped her face and stared at the flames. Would they ever find their way back to each other? The next morning, Nmaja walked to the far end of the village to see the old elder, Bandel once more. His compound was quiet, and he was seated beneath the udala tree, weaving small palm fans. "Papa," she said softly, "I have waited. I've cooked, I've prayed, I've loved. But nothing is changing." Bandel looked at her with kind eyes. "Love," he said, "is a slow-growing tree, but even trees must be watered from a full calabash. You cannot pour from an empty one, my child." She frowned, confused, but nodded. Bandel's words always carried weight, even when they were heavy to understand. "I will keep trying," she whispered. That night, Chuma tossed in bed. He stared at the roof and thought about Nmaja, how she had still cared for him, still brought him food, still smiled even when he gave her silence. "She has only shown me kindness," he thought, "and I have returned it with coldness." He remembered their wedding day, her laughter, her dreams, the way she had leaned on him before she ever became famous. A deep ache crept into his chest. "Maybe I have been wrong," he murmured. Into the night. The next morning, while the sun still yawned behind the hills, Nmaja rose early. Her hands moved slowly across the loom. She chose her softest threads, golden yellow, earth brown, deep blue. She wove them into a cloth with gentle fingers, each stitch a memory, the laughter they once shared, the songs they used to sing. By midday, the fabric was ready. She folded it neatly and placed it on the wooden table. When Chuma came in from his walk, she smiled and said, "I made this for you, my love." Chuma stared at the cloth. It was beautiful, more beautiful than anything she had ever made before. The colors shimmered like morning light on river water. He touched the fabric but said nothing. His heart stirred, but the pride still wrapped around it like thorny vines. He walked outside and sat beneath the mango tree, turning the cloth over in his hands. His mind wandered back to the early days, when he would tell the villagers, "No one weaves like my Namaya." Now he sat in silence, ashamed. He had let the green-eyed spirit of envy poison his love. He knew it, and he wanted to change. By the time the sun was falling, painting the sky orange and gold, Chuma returned home. Namaya was sitting near the hearth, humming softly. He sat beside her, hesitating for a moment, then reached out and took her hand. "Namaja," he said, his voice low, "I have been wrong. I let bitterness live in me, and I let it hurt you." She looked at him, eyes wide with hope. "I'm sorry," he said. Her heart leapt. She had waited so long, too long, to hear. Those words, "I love you, Chuma," she whispered, voice breaking. "I never wanted my work to pull us apart." They sat in silence, hand in hand, not needing more words. In that quiet moment, something old began to mend. The next morning, for the first time in months, they took a walk together. The villagers paused as they passed, curious eyes following them. They talked, really talked, about dreams, about love, about building again from where they had broken. "I will try to be better," Chuma said. "I want to support you, to be the husband I promised to be. And I will never let my success drown the sound of your voice," she replied. "You are part of me." A few days later, the village hosted a harvest celebration. The air smelled of roasted maize, honeyed yams, and fresh palm wine. Drums echoed across the fields, and laughter danced in the wind. This time, Nmaja and Chuma arrived together, hand in hand. The people welcomed them with cheers and wide smiles. Some of the elders nodded in quiet approval, whispering, "Look how the boy has returned, the pride has melted." "He looks happy again," said one woman. "He looks proud of her." "Yes," another answered. "Maybe their love is healing." As the celebration rose and the drums beat louder, Nmaja turned to Chuma with a playful smile. "Will you dance with me?" she asked, shy like a young bride. Chuma nodded. They stepped into the open space where villagers swayed to the rhythm of wooden drums. Together they moved, slow at first, then faster, laughter spilling from them like rain. As they twirled, Nmaja felt the heaviness of the past slip off her shoulders. She looked into Chuma's eyes, and there it was. Love. Not the old kind, but a new one. Tested, bruised, but still standing. The crowd clapped and cheered. Children jumped with joy, elders lifted their canes in rhythm, and friends shouted, "This is how love returns." When the dance ended, Chuma held her close. That night, under the stars, they sat outside their home, hand in hand, listening to the night sounds, the chirp of crickets, the rustle of trees, the steady beat of peace. They began to talk about the days ahead. "We've been broken," Chuma said, "but we're not beyond repair," Nmaja added, and together they looked at the road ahead, no longer afraid. "We've been through so much," Chuma whispered, his eyes soft. "But I believe we can begin again." Nmaja reached for his hand. "Yes, we're stronger when we walk together." That night, under the light of flickering oil lamps, they made a promise. Never again would they allow pride or jealousy to build walls between them. Their love was worth protecting, worth fighting for. In the weeks that followed, laughter once more filled their compound. The bitter silence that had once ruled was replaced with cheerful voices and gentle teasing. Chuma, who had once watched Nmaja's weaving from afar, now joined her at the loom. He offered ideas, helped her sort colors, and even traveled with her to neighboring villages when deliveries were needed. The people of Agbale watched in awe. "They found their way back," one elder murmured. "That is the power of true love." Indeed, another agreed. It always finds a path, even through thorns. Inspired by their healing, Chuma started his own small workshop, crafting fine tools and strong wooden furniture. With Namaja's encouragement and the villagers' support, his business began to grow. No longer did he feel like a shadow behind his wife. He was proud of his work, and even prouder to stand beside her. "You see my heart," Namaja said one evening, smiling as they packed a basket of orders. "We can both succeed." Chuma laughed, touching her cheek. "Together we're unstoppable." Not long after, the village chief sent a messenger to invite the couple to a grand feast, a celebration of their strength and unity. When they arrived, they were seated at the head of a long table, surrounded by smiling faces, swaying dancers, and the aroma of roasted plantain and spiced meat. The air buzzed with joy. As Namaya looked around, her heart swelled with contentment. "This is what I always dreamed of," she thought. "A life full of peace, love, and purpose." Chuma leaned close, whispering in her ear, "I am proud of you, Namaja. I always have been, even when I didn't know how to show it." During the celebration, the chief stood and raised his calabash high. "Let us honor Namaja and Chuma," he declared, "for reminding us that love mixed with hard work can overcome even the harshest trials." The crowd clapped as two elder women stepped forward with a beautiful gift, a thick woven blanket stitched by the village mothers. Its patterns told a story, a river that split, then came back together stronger than before. Maja and Chuma received the cloth with humble hearts, bowing low. "Thank you," they said in unison. "We will carry this love with us." Later that night, as they sat under a sky full of stars, they spoke quietly about the future. "I think," Chuma said, smiling shyly, "it's time we grow our family." Maja's eyes lit up like morning sun. "I've dreamed of that day," she said. "Let's raise children with love and teach them to walk with kindness." Together they began preparing their home for new life. They cleaned every corner, painted the walls, and gathered soft blankets. Chuma carved a small crib by hand, while Anamaja embroidered tiny clothes with colorful thread. The villagers watched with joy as the couple worked side by side. Their story had become a symbol, a reminder that even the deepest wounds can heal. Months passed. Then one morning, the healer woman arrived at their door with a smile. "You are with child," she told Namaja. Tears filled their eyes. Chuma lifted Namaja into his arms, spinning her around. The drums in Agbale beat with celebration that night. The villagers sang, danced, and offered blessings. Everyone rejoiced for the child soon to come, a symbol of love reborn. As time flowed, like the river, their love grew even stronger. They had learned the balance between ambition and affection, between pride and humility. Together, they faced every new day with unity. "There will still be storms," Chuma said one evening, as they prepared for bed. "But now we have learned how to hold the umbrella together." "Yes," and Maja nodded. "And no matter what, we walk side by side." Their story became one that mothers told their daughters and elders shared with young couples. "This," they'd say, "is what real love looks like. Not perfect, but willing." One evening, not long after their child was born, a sweet baby girl with bright eyes and strong lungs, and Maja and Chuma sat outside their hut, watching the sun melt behind the hills. Their baby slept in Maja's arms, wrapped in the cloth given by the village women. "We've come so far," Chuma said softly. "And we'll go even further," Maja replied, leaning her head on his shoulder. The wind whispered around them like a song. They had faced jealousy. They had nearly lost each other. But they had chosen forgiveness. They had chosen growth. And in doing so, they had found something stronger than love. They had found trust. Their story was not just theirs anymore. It belonged to Agbale. It belonged to every heart learning to heal. And so the tale of Maja and Chuma lived on, a legend passed from one generation to the next, reminding all who heard it that no storm is too great when two hearts choose to weather it together. Moral of the story: this tale reminds us that jealousy can harm even the strongest love, but healing is possible when hearts stay open. Love is not a competition. It is a partnership. When we support each other's growth instead of fearing it, we rise together. Trust, understanding, and honest communication are the soil where real love grows.